This is a Boston Bruins fan. If you don't want to miss any news from the Bees firsthand, subscribe to this channel now, because we are always attentive to the latest news from the Boston Bruins, and here you are always updated on everything. The Boston Bruins of 2022-23 is having a historic season and may yet finish with the most wins and points in NHL history. No one can argue that. As longtime Boston Globe and Hockey Hall of Fame scribe Kevin Paul DuPont noted on the most recent edition of the Boston Hockey Now podcast, there's also no doubt that the team they can still top with the most points in a season, the 1976-77 Montreal Canadiens, 134 points, are in an entirely different stratosphere from which this current Bruins team is not and will never be close. In fact, all Canadiens teams from the 70s are in a league of their own. Leave your like on this video, it's very important so you don't miss the latest news from the Bruins, which we posted here, thank you. It's very difficult to make that comparison from generation to generation, or decade to decade, DuPont pointed out. However, I will say this, obviously it's a 32-team league now, it wasn't then. There were almost no Europeans. No Russians did not appear until the late 80s. I didn't see the Czechs, I didn't really see the Scandinavians. It was arguably a Canadian old boys club, really, and the Canadiens were sold out. The Bruins had great teams. The Bruins went to the finals midway through with them, in the late 70s repeatedly. Or semi-finals, some finals. They failed in that entire run from 1943 to 1988, where they failed to pass the Canadiens in the playoffs. Not every year, but it lasted those 45 or 46 years. It is impossible for me to make direct comparisons. That 71 team that lost early to the Canadiens and Ken Dryden. If you go back and look at the names, and the buildings were a factor as well, because the buildings weren't all 85 by 200. The Garden had that little neutral zone. So there's all these kinds of quirks and niches from the era that I think you can do a comparison, and you have rosters that are full of Hall of Fame players. So start there. To find out more about what DuPont had to say about it, as well as how he thinks Montgomery can keep his team sharp down the stretch, subscribe to the channel and stay up to date on all the news from the BS. And their Boston Bruins fan, in your opinion, is it fair to have this kind of comparison or not? What is your opinion? Put it in the comments, it's very important for the Boston Bruins. Stay tuned as I update you at any time with the latest news from the Boston Bruins.